Call the meeting to order at 6:29. Please stand for the pledge of allegiance.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, and to the republic which stands one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right, Madam Clerk, roll call, please.
Mason. Blucard.
Here.
McNeil.
Here.
Martinez.
Here.
Pierce.
Present.
Peterson.
Present.
Mayor Gardner.
Present. All right, everybody's here. I want to make an acknowledgement. I get this every year, an email acknowledging payroll week. So I want to acknowledge it's payroll week for everybody. Michael, thank you. I'm sure everybody here is appreciative of that. And I also want to acknowledge this is the last board meeting in this room. Hopefully everything goes okay with the AV in the new place. But some of you have been here in this room for a long time, so it's gonna be a little weird to the new place. And we're looking forward to it.
Some of us longer than others.
I mean, Paul's gonna have to get a new chair over there, so.
Don't worry, Your Honor.
Hey, we're taking it.
This with me.
Just put your name on it. We're taking the same look over there. All right, do we have anybody that, so a couple more things. I want to acknowledge, in that move process, we had a couple people who really had to do a lot of work. One of them, first and foremost, is sitting next to me, Rachel. Her and Lori had to do a ton of work to logistically plan the move. Also, Michael Peterson, John, and Ross all had a lot to do with getting us moved over there. So I want to thank you. And we're still in progress of moving, as you know, chairs and other things over there. But I do have some fancy Nancy certificates that Lori printed. And also Amy, who's not here tonight. But one is for Rachel. Again, we want to give you this for. She'd probably rather have a check with the certificate right now. And Amy also, we'll give her this certificate when we see her next time. But thank you for everything you guys did, and give them a round of applause for later. All right, we have two items on citizens wishing to address the board. Do we have any? There's one go through there.
One.
Right. Oh gosh.
Massive more.
Yes. No, you read that. It's your job.
The opportunity to speak to the board is provided for members of the public who have a comment to make about the business of the board. The board appreciates hearing from stakeholders and values your thoughts and questions. The board strives to make the best decisions for the village, and public input is very helpful. The board must protect the civility and decorum of this meeting. Please be respectful for the duties of the board and the democratic process in your comments tonight. Please state your name and address your comments to the board. Please limit your comments to 3 minutes. Please be factual and courteous, and the board requests that you not make statements that are personally disrespectful or condescending to members of the board or staff. To the extent multiple speakers are addressing a single issue, the mayor or chair of the meeting reserves the right to limit the number of speakers making public comment of a repetitive nature. And the board does not respond to comments or attempt to answer questions during the public comment period.
Thank you.
We have Joseph Haley.
Thank you, Joseph Haley, 604 Indian Ridge Drive. I'm going to come up here and do something maybe you're not used to. Say thank you. On behalf of the Woods of Antioch, we came to you all with a project a couple of years ago. And seeing that project come through into fruition of getting our streets redone is a breath of fresh air. So thank you to the village board, previous board members for working with us and getting that project done. There's still a little bit to go and a little bit of landscaping, but that's yet to come. The roads are beautiful. They're amazing. Parents can push their kids in a stroller across the street now. Kids are not popping their tires on our roads anymore. It's amazing. So thank you again for that. Jeff Gushow, thank you so much for all you do and what you did for us to get this project moving. You all came out and saw our streets firsthand and recognized how bad they were. So Jeff, thank you. Big shout out to Dennis Heimbro. Dennis Heimbro did so much work. Public Works Department coming on and seeing how bad it was and doing that to perfection, I think was great. We thought this was going to be a 5 to 7 year project, and we got it done in 1 year. So thank you all for that. It's pretty amazing. Last but not least, I want to say thank you to Alex from HR Green. If you've not met Alex from HR Green, this kid is unbelievable. He went door to door in our neighborhood, making sure that each resident knew what was coming up in the following week or even the next day. And sometimes he took on a lot more than he should have, but God bless him. So HR Green, you're in good hands, balance. So thank you all.
Thanks, Jim. All right, thank you. Yeah. Thank you very much. We have 2 items on the consent agenda. Does anyone have a motion to remove either of those items? If not, I take a motion and a second, to approve the consent agenda.
So moved.
Motion trustee Peterson, second trustee Luther, roll call.
Mason.
Yes.
Yes.
Neil. Yes. Martinez.
Yes.
Pierce.
Aye.
Peterson. Yes.
Not this time. We're good right now. All right, so, item number 3, we're going to the regular business, is consideration and approval of payments of accounts payable as prepared by staff in the amount of $861,593.33. Do I have a motion in a second?
So moved.
Motion trustee Peterson,
Second.
second trustee McNeil. Roll call, please.
Mason.
Yes.
Luther.
Yes.
McNeil. Yes. Martinez.
Yes.
Pierce.
Aye.
Peterson.
Yes.
6 voting yes, motion carries. Next item is consideration and approval of a resolution authorizing the village administrator to execute an agreement for the village communications proposal for vicarious multimedia in the amount not to exceed $54,000, resolution 25-69. Do I have a motion in a second?
So moved.
Motion trustee Bluthart,
Second.
Watson,
Sorry.
and second trustee Peterson. No discussion?
Yeah, one discussion. So this is gonna ensure our branding stays where it should, right?
Yes.
So it prevents other people from jumping the gun, making Facebook posts, we have folks that put messages out.
Yeah, so this is a firm that will be tasked with all of our village communications, including social media.
So where one puts it out instead of 3 putting it out, would be an open meeting violation, this will take care of it.
Yeah.
Thank you.
All right, anything else? Roll call, please.
Mason.
Yes.
Luther.
Yes.
McNeil. Yes. Martinez.
Yes.
Pierce.
Aye.
Peterson.
Yes.
6 voting yes, motion carries. Next item. I believe 5 items 5, 6, 7, 8, and 9 all relate to the approval from the planning and zoning for the village hall. I'd ask if there's a motion in a second to combine those.
Yes, make a motion to combine all of them in a yes vote.
Public Works, yeah.
Second.
Motion trustee Masek. Second
Second.
trustee Peterson. So this would be, I'll just read off the ordinance numbers. Ordinance number 25-08-57. It would be resolution 25-70, ordinance number 25-08-58, ordinance number 25-08-59, and ordinance number 25-08-60. I guess I probably also need someone to make a motion in a second, waiving the second reading of the ordinance.
Yeah, that's my vote to waive. I'll amend it and waive it second.
Motion trustee Masek,
Second.
second trustee Peterson. No objections, all right. I need a motion in a second to approve those items.
Yes.
Motion trustee Masek,
Second.
second trustee McNeil. All right, roll call, please.
Yes.
Mason.
Yes.
It's going too fast.
Mayor, can we please stop that, trustee Mason? You're doing that, and I know it's.
Oh, I'm sorry, I'm
It's
sorry.
very-
for your feelings.
All right, so
You
yeah.
don't do anything annoying?
All right, it's okay, guys, let's go.
You're chairman.
All right.
Whoa, hold on, I gotta go.
No.
Have a little-
We have a motion and a second, and we have a roll call. You already voted. We have trustee Bluthart.
Yes.
Okay,
McNeil. Yes. Martinez.
Yes.
Pierce.
Aye.
Peterson.
Yes.
6 voting yes, the motion carries. All right, moving on to item number 10, which is consideration and approval of a resolution authorizing the treatment facility to proceed with the heated instrument enclosures project in the amount of $24,850.00. Resolution 25-71. Do I have a motion and a second?
So move.
Motion trustee Peterson,
Second.
second trustee McNeil. All right, roll call, please.
Mason.
Yes.
Luther.
Yes.
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 Here,
Aye.
Pearson.
Six, voting yes, motion carries. 11, item number 11 is consideration and approval of a resolution authorizing the treatment facility to proceed with the North Aeration Grid Diffuser Project, a replacement project in the amount of $32,100, resolution number 25-72. Do I have a motion in a second?
So moved.
Motion trustee Peterson,
Second.
second trustee McNeil. Roll call, please.
Mason,
Yes.
Luther,
Yes.
McNeil,
Yes.
Martinez,
Yes.
Pierce,
Aye.
Peterson.
Yes.
6 voting yes, motion carries. Here's a big one. Number 12, consideration and approval of a resolution authorizing and approving 28 bid packages and consideration of award to add alternates for construction for a new public works facility at 20 North Avenue, resolution number 25-73. Do we have a motion and a second?
So moved.
Motion trustee Peterson,
Second.
second trustee Martinez. Anything on this? I know this is a big topic last time. If not, roll call, please.
The way it says that we're awarding the alternatives, don't we have to discuss those or vote on those separately? Or
Dennis, we asked Dennis how that's packaged together. That was not here obviously last time.
No, definitely, thank you. The way that I wanted to present this to the board, as we discussed at the last meeting, is the 3 alternates were being considered. I know you asked for some financial, backing from the finance department. Fuel Island, I'm not 100% set on. So I'm gonna hold off on that one, and I thought I'd bring in mezzanine, the storage bins. If you do not wish to pursue with them, then you can basically deny either one or both, but follow through with the individual 20-bit bin.
Scratch up.
Yeah, so I know that trustee Pierce, I believe last time asked us to do a little bit of homework on the financial picture for this project. Director Peters and I have had a number of conversations about this, even leading into late this afternoon. The village has a very good financial outlook. However, this is a very large project, and a lot of the 5-year forecast is based on best guess estimates that Director Peters has put together, revenue projections. So in discussing this, he and I are both very confident that the village can move forward with the mezzanine component, being the permanent structure with the elevator that is the one that Dennis really had his eyes set on, because it's going to serve the facility long into the future. And I think we all agree that that is a critical component of the operation of the building. The fuel island, we agree, something that probably you a little bit later, as this project goes, that Dennis says that he's not even sure what the ROI on that part of the project is going to be. He's trying to do a pretty deep dive into the cost savings that we have from buying fuel in bulk versus our current process of using our WEX card. And then currently, Director Peters and I would prefer, Dennis concurs, to reevaluate the material storage bins on the exterior of the building in the spring. There's some critical data on revenue projections that will help him put some of these missing pieces to the puzzle together in the late spring. So if the board is comfortable with moving forward with approving the mezzanine as presented, I think that would be the recommendation of staff. And then reevaluating the material storage bins and then potentially the fuel island as the project progresses.
Questions? Yeah.
When it comes to the alternatives, the mezzanine. So we're either, the way we're voting on this now, is that includes that. Is there a way, or how do we have a vote on those alternatives separately and then the whole bid package?
Yeah, like how do we go to
Because
the base bid?
For me, I don't think we need an elevator, so it's the same amount of storage, and I think the maintenance and everything else with an elevator and the amount of use isn't worth a couple $100,000. So I want to vote no on an elevator, but I would vote for the whole project. But if I have to vote for the whole project, including the elevator, then I'm gonna have to change my vote. So that's where I'd rather vote on the alternatives as a board and then vote on the whole project.
And I have one item, the structural mezzanine. The reason bringing it now is because it's part of the building. The other mezzanines that we looked at, one of the modular that could be put in late. It doesn't require necessarily an elevator, but, it's not as structurally sound as the mezzanine that's basically gonna be part of
I
that,
understand.
which requires an elevator.
I mean, I guess the short answer is that it can go both of them. Okay.
Yeah, because without an elevator, what kind of rates will go up? So you're gonna pay for a one-way through insurance premiums, you're gonna give it to the broker, with shoulder and back injuries, it makes 0 sense.
Yeah, sure.
Director, is the elevator required under the American with Disabilities Act for compliance?
Yes.
Yeah.
So, and you don't know, but then you basically be building a building that's not.
Well, I thought at the last meeting, they talked about how if we had the non-permanent mezzanine, that did not require the elevator. As you talked about using a forklift to load it and everything else, it was only if it was the permanent mezzanine that required the elevator.
So I think the long and short of it is what's before us now is the whole package. And then if we deny it, then they gotta come back.
That's not how it was described last meeting, though.
At the last meeting, I thought the feeling of the board was to push for the structural mezzanine, the preferred one for us. I will add also is, we may not be the only department utilizing the mezzanine. You may have village hall staff that brings over files or something that we may be keeping PD parks. An elevator, we may not be there with forklift to move whatever material. So it may be a beneficial piece of equipment for other staff to be able to put stuff out there or take stuff out.
Just one point. So if we put in the other mezzanine, are there things, items, pieces of equipment that you were planning on storing up there, like plows or mowers, things like that, wouldn't be able to be stored in the other mezzanine?
There's gonna be weight
A
limits.
structural problem,
There's gonna be weight limits.
which we wouldn't have with the mezzanine that's built with the building. Okay.
Trustee Pierce?
I'm sorry, we can put elevators and plows up on the mezzanine.
There could be zero turn mowers that go up there. There could be plows, maybe not the large snow plows, but pickup truck snow plows.
$200,000 or so, we're gonna get elevators that have the weight capacity.
No, that would be with forklift.
Oh, that would be with.
We wouldn't put a,
So we wouldn't use
plow in
the
it.
elevator, to put these large pieces of equipment up there, we'd be using a forklift.
yes,
Okay,
But then the elevator is, excuse me, I'm sorry.
that's okay.
The elevator is supposed to, you're supposed to have the elevator with the mezzanine,
yes.
with this particular one.
Mezzanine would be used if we had, maybe not something that you would put on a forklift, or you couldn't. You could roll it into the mezzanine or the elevator, the employee could take it up and wheel it out. If it's on a cart or so forth. It's, maybe a pump, a lift station pump. Maybe that's not something we're gonna put on a pallet and strap down and use a forklift. We'll use the mezzanine. It all depends on, or the elevator. It all depends on the weight capacity of the elevator, but it'll be utilized in a transportation where we don't need a piece of machine, which I don't always want to use either, but there's a risk factor there when you're lifting heavy equipment up onto a higher level.
If I could just add to this as well, being somebody that's not from the construction or public works background, I had a lot of these same questions as well when we went through this process of trying to understand the pros and cons of it. That there's the dollar cost associated with the project itself. So certainly going with permanent mezzanine with the elevator is going to increase the dollar cost of the project. But then there's also the cost of efficiency and staff safety as well. Keeping in mind that if there's, where holiday decoration is stored on the top shelf of this modular mezzanine, in order to access it, it's probably a required dentist to move some trucks and equipment out of the bay, bring a forklift in, have someone access it, bring it down. Versus in an elevator, it's easy access up, down. So there's improvements in the efficiency. And I will attest, based on my experience at the PD, storage is always a problem. I've mentioned in the past, we don't have a storage closet like we used to hold a lot of things. So everything has gone to public works. They become the dumping ground for everything we can't store. And now the village halls moved as well. While we moved all of our essential equipment over there, just walk around the building and look how much we still have here in terms of files, in terms of other odds and ends. They're eventually going to have to go somewhere. So we're either going to pay additional fees on a monthly basis to rent storage space for that storage, or we build public works with a little bit additional space internally to be able to store those items that are ours by ourselves. So again, immediately, yes, it's a couple $100,000 difference, but looking long range based on my experiences with PD and encouraging the board to not make some of the mistakes that past boards made with building our public facilities, you're never going to regret spending a little bit more now to get the facility that you need that will last the next 20 years. Thank you.
Any other questions, discussion on this? All right, so I have a motion and a second. Trustee Pierce, yeah.
I don't know, I'm just not feeling it right now, I hate to say it. Because it doesn't seem like this project's changed any from day one. Basically, they're getting what they want. And any input from some people on the board is getting ignored, and we get told one thing last week, and then this week it's like, oh, just put it off, get excited, move forward. You know, and you can sit there and roll your head that all you want, custom made, so I'm sorry, you know.
I'm not rolling my head, I'm
Okay.
stretching my neck.
All right.
I don't know why you're.
All right, that's okay, that's all right. So
I got it right.
We have a motion and a second. Here's the deal. We have a motion and a second. I'm gonna call.
Jeez,
We have a motion and a second. I'm gonna call the vote. The discussion's over. Discussion is over. We're gonna call the vote, and if it doesn't pass, then they bring it back to something else. So, Madam Clerk, please call the vote.
Basic,
Yes.
Luther,
No.
McNeil,
Yes.
Martinez,
Yes.
Pierce,
No.
Peterson.
Yes.
All right, 4 voting yes, motion carries. Next item is item number 13, which is consideration and approval of a resolution authorizing an agreement for construction management services for the construction of the new public works facility for the village of Antioch, resolution number 25-74. Do I have a motion and a second?
So moved.
You guys second again. All right,
Second.
motion trustee McNeil this time, second trustee Peterson. Any discussion on this? Roll call, please.
Basic,
Martinez?
You know, what comes to mind here is, I think of the quote where it talks about, when's the best time to plant a tree? Well, 20 years ago. What's the second best time to plant a tree? Now. So we really have to start talking about what we're doing here is for the future, and let's make the best decision. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Anybody? Roll call, please.
Basic,
Yes.
Luther,
Yes.
McNeil,
Yes.
Martinez,
Yes.
Pierce,
No.
Peterson.
Yes.
All right, 5 voting yes, motion carries. Administrators.
A couple of quick points, nothing lengthy this evening. So just as the board is aware, brought to you last year that we had entered into conversations with a fiber optic broadband company. That proposal still remains in effect. It's with engineering review right now on a right-of-way agreement that Dennis has been working through. While there is no perfect solution, it's, the market is driving this trend. We have been approached by a second fiber company too that has also expressed interest. So it's clear that the growing market demand is here. So we'll be coming to the community in the near future. There's just a lot of logistics that Dennis has been working through to make sure that our right of ways and our infrastructure are protected. The Lennar project for Clublands, the remainder of phase 3 and phase 4 is moving forward. They have begun submitting their master sets of their plans for plan review to HR Green. They've worked through all the the muddy waters with utility easements that need to be changed for the front yard easements. So we anticipate that they'll be able to start submitting actual home site permits in the relatively near future. We had the opportunity this week, along with Assistant Administrator Brandon, attend the Northwest Lake County Managers meeting. It's a great opportunity for us to network with other administrators within Lake County. A lot of good ideas come out of that, and get some exposure to how other communities are doing things and learn some new things each time. Again, I just want to echo the mayor's message of thank you to everybody for all their efforts during the move. For anybody that's ever been through it, it's never easy. So this was a household move on steroids, and Rachel was a saint for dealing with everybody's craziness through the process. So again, thank you to everybody that worked through those logistics. We're in the process of settling into the new space. As with any new space, there's always the odds and ends that come up that have to be done. Everything from, we have to figure out a key system to, a drippy faucet or just other odds and ends. As for the technology, Amy does continue to work with our contractor through that process to get it up and running. It's a pretty advanced system, so it's going to take a little bit of time for staff to learn. So really when the board meetings move over there, it's going to be highly dependent on that system getting up and running and the staff becoming comfortable with operating it. So we're targeting the next meeting, but certainly at some point within September, we'll be able to hold our meetings over there moving forward. And then Attorney Baselli and I have been working on the response to the redevelopment agreement proposal from the marketplace. We have a conference call scheduled tomorrow to kind of finalize the terms of this non-binding proposal. We will then send it over to the developer. It'll be a starting point for discussions. Hopefully we'll be able to have some positive news to report moving forward on that long desired project to start moving. If there's any questions from the board, that'll push for questions.
Questions, all right, thank you. Village clerk, anything to say? Trustees, any trustee reports, anything here? Trustee Luther?
I just wanted to give a shout out to trustees Martinez and Pierce for taking the lead on their nonprofit events this summer. The two of them, as well as some of the other trustees that have gone out there to help raise money and awareness for these non-for-profits. They've done a great job of getting it spread out there. I know that the non-for-profits that came were very happy with everyone. And I just think that it was a good idea from, I believe, Scott, you brought that up originally, and the trustee Martinez jumped right on that. And I think it's been a great thing this summer at the concerts. So shout out to you too.
Thank you.
I think trustee Luker a little shy. He's been in the line. Trustee McNeil's been there. Trustee Pearson's been there. It's been a good event, and I think everybody thinks that Trustee Martinez has been there really well, so he deserves to be on that.
Thank you.
So we have our last one tomorrow night, which is Female Theater.
All right, very nice. Any other trustees? Let's see, all right, we're moving quick. Can I get a motion to adjourn the regular board meeting?
So moved.
Second.
Trustee Pearson, second trustee McNeil. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, we're adjourned at 6:57. We can go right to the next meeting if you want. Let's do it. All right. So we're gonna go right, yeah, and if you scatter, get out of here. We won't keep you. All right. All right, so I'm gonna, while the actuary is passing out the actual report, we're going to call this meeting to order at 6:57. Roll call, please.
Basic,
Thank you.
Here.
Luther,
Here.
Neil,
Here.
Martinez,
Here.
Pierce,
Present.
Peterson,
Here.
Mayor Gurke.
Present. All right, I'm assuming that we all signed up. We have 3 items on regular business. The first is the approval of the August 13th, 2025 committee of the whole meeting minutes as presented. Do I have a motion in a second? So move. Motion trustee Luther.
Second.
Second trustee McNeil. Roll call, please.
Basic,
Yes.
Luther,
Yes.
Neil,
Yes.
Martinez,
Yes.
Pierce,
No.
Peterson,
Yes.
All right, 5 voting yes. Motion carries. Next is the just for a note, I want to note that the date is wrong. Item number 2, it should say April 30th, 2026. Ending both 2 times, it should say 2026. So based on that amendment, the item number 2 is discussion and presentation regarding the GASB 67 and 68 actuarial evaluation for fiscal year ending April 30th, 2026. and the tax levy actual valuation for the fiscal year ending April 30th, 2026 for the police pension fund. Welcome.
Thank you. Thanks for having me here tonight to the village board. Just by way of introduction, my name is Kevin Kavanaugh. I'm an actuarial consultant at Lauterbach and Eamon. I'm here today to talk about those two deliverables that I just passed out. It's going to summarize this year's actuarial funding report. That's going to be the bulk of my presentation this evening. And then as well, we'll touch on the GASB 6768 report, as well as some projections we did for future costs associated with funding the police pension fund. So without further ado, if you turn to that first deliverable I passed around, that looks like a PowerPoint, and I'll reference those page numbers in the bottom left corner. Starting on page 2, that's got your key result for this year. So when it comes to the police pension fund, our recommended contribution for this upcoming year is $2,509,707. Year over year, compared to last year's recommendation, that's an increase of about $121,000, or about a 5.08% increase. So slightly larger increase than we generally expect to see, and I'll walk through that in just a moment on the next page. You can see the total asset value within the pension fund as of April 30, 2025 is $19,760,100. Ultimately, that leads you to your unfunded liability, that third line up from the bottom, of $23,099,800. Basically, one way to think about that, that's how much it would take to get the fund to be fully funded, tomorrow, if you wanted to be 100% funded, which translates to your funded percent this year on an actuarial value basis, about 46% funded, and on a fair value rate about the same, about 46%. The current funding policy in place to pay off that unfunded liability is we're targeting full payout 100% over the next 15 years. And I'll show you that breakdown in just a moment. Turning to page 3, this is going to summarize the different changes that led to the increase. So at the very bottom right of page 3, you'll see the total net increase in the recommended contribution of the $121,300. And it's the sum of everything you see listed above. So starting at the top right, we expected to see an increase of about $77,600. We did observe salary increases were greater than expected for police officers this year, so $9,200 increase there. The actuarial experience, as any demographic changes incurred during the year, was a net $26,700 reduction. Assumption changes is indicative of the fact we did an assumption study this past year. So every 3 to 5 years, we take a comprehensive look at the underlying assumptions used in our valuation process. We did a comprehensive update for this year. The biggest driver of the increase that led to that $56,000 increase was observing higher retirement rates at lower ages for police officers in Illinois. So reflecting this in the valuation means that we're anticipating officers to retire earlier, means a shorter time horizon to invest for their retirement benefits, and a longer time horizon that we're expecting to pay out those benefits for those officers. So that's kind of the key takeaway there.
Can I ask a question real quick?
Absolutely.
Since you're on that part.
Yeah.
That retirement estimation, is that local in the collar counties, or is that Chicago included?
Good question. So not Chicago. It's all downstate Illinois Fire and Police Pension Funds. So specifically for Antioch Police, we look at every police pension fund that we as Lauterbach and Eamon have access to. We do valuations for approximately 400 there's about 650 police and fire pension funds in the state of Illinois. We do about 400 of them, about roughly half and half fire and police, probably a little bit more fire. So somewhere in the neighborhood of approximately 200 different police pension funds in Illinois. When I say downstate, I just mean everything except for Chicago. That's the way it's categorized from a legal standpoint. So we look at the experience that was observed from those funds to then project forward our best estimate of future retirements. Any other questions on that page? At the bottom there, the investment returns were greater than expected. That helped you guys out, $4,400 reduction, and contributions less than expected. Very small shortfall there. The contribution was about 99% of the recommended amount. So it's just really timing component there. So $9,700. Turning to that next slide on page 4, I'll kind of move through relatively quickly through the rest of the information here to not keep everybody here all evening, which I'd love to do. I can talk about your actual reporting all night if you want. Page 4 is got the two components that make up your full recommended contribution. First piece there being employer normal costs. Think of that as the cost of benefit accrual for your active officers. So theoretically, if the fund was 100% funded, that would be the full recommended contribution. It would just be that $455,000. But because there is that $23 million of unfunded liability, targeting full funding over the next 15 years, This year's payment towards that is the $2,054,000, and together that gets us to the $2,509,000 full recommended.
15 years, is that, do they kick it out to 2040 or do they kick it out to 2050? Are they going to kick it out? I can say right now.
Yeah, great question. Current state statute for minimum funding policy parameters in the state of Illinois is that you have to make a contribution at least enough to target 90% funding by the year 2040. So that's that 15 years, 2025 to 2040, right? 15 years. Right now, with our recommended contribution, we're recommending targeting 100% funding by 2040 instead of the 90%. So we do deviate in the recommendation from that statutory minimum policy. But as it stands right now, that's current state policy. That is a kick out from the past. It used to be 2033. And right now, there's a lot of discussion at the state level to extend out that statutory minimum funding target to 2050 or potentially even 2055. So what that would do is, as you can imagine, right, it's kind of like refinancing your mortgage, right? If you get a lot longer time to pay off that unfunded liability, the minimum required amount of contribution from the village will drop off substantially if we see that legislation go. But our recommendation always, as a private actuary, Lauterbach and Amon, would be, don't follow suit if the state does that and stick to your knitting on the recommended contribution, where we would not recommend extending that out to 10 or 15.
Agreed, thank you.
Yeah, good question. Page 5, I don't like to dwell too much on this at a village board meeting, but page 5 is gonna have all the demographic changes for the year. So we saw 5 new hires, 1 retirement, 3 terminations, and then really nobody passed away. Everyone who was collecting benefits from the police pension fund continued to collect during the fiscal year ended April 30, 2025. Page 6 is going to show you for your active members. These are active police officers, their age as well as their service. And kind of note here is towards the bottom right, there's that bordered off section, kind of like the shape of a boot there. That represents tier 1 retirement eligibility. Anyone that falls within that box, of which you have 2 of your active members, they are retirement eligible as of April 30, 2025. So it's basically up to them to decide when they're ready to declare their intent to retire. So 2 of your 32 actives, a relatively small portion of the population.
When somebody retires, how's that affect, how's that affect, our liability? Do they transfer the fund and start drawing, keep kicking in money, or do they, what's the balance of it?
It's a great question. So the way it works is through the employer normal cost, the idea, the concept behind that is that every year when members are active, you're allocating dollars to pay for their future retirement benefits. So in a perfect world, when a member goes to retire, it would essentially have no impact on your contribution amount to the fund. If that normal cost has been funded throughout their whole working career and they retire exactly according to kind of the probabilities that we assume, you won't see a big impact. However, the reality is there are factors that can lead to a bigger impact. So the 2 biggest things is when that member declares their intent to retire. So if they, let's say, as soon as the member turns 50, they say, I'm out the door, I'm going to retire. We assume a probability of retirement ranging from age 50 to 65. So if they retire on the earlier end of that spectrum, we're generally going to see an increase in the contribution as it relates to that, their retirement. The other thing as well is that when members are active, we don't have data as we get our data from the Illinois Department of Insurance via the annual statement that's submitted every year on behalf of the Police Pension Fund. As part of that filing, there's no spousal data reported for active members. It makes sense because ultimately when members are active, there can be a lot of changes by the time they go to retire. And what really matters for the purpose of retirement benefits is whether or not that member is married at retirement and what is their spouse's age. So that's the other kind of reckoning, if you will, at retirement is while they're active, we assume an 80% probability that they're married. We assume female spouses are 3 years younger than males. At retirement, if it turns out that they're unmarried, that can help reduce costs. If they are married, you'll see a slight increase in costs. And particularly if their spouse is significantly younger, then that leads to a significantly additional increase in cost because then we're paying that benefit over 2 lifetimes as opposed to just the one for the member. So yeah, so perfect world, no impact. But in reality, I'd say more often than not, we see an increase in the contribution when a member goes to retire. Not in the hundreds of thousands when it comes to contribution amounts, but it can be somewhat substantial. That, actually, if you go back to page 5, you did have that one retirement this year. That individual, just based on their demographics and the way it happened, led to a $2,900 increase in the contribution. So of the total contribution, that accounts for about $3,000 of the 2.5 million. So as you can see, it's relatively small in the grand scheme of things, however, not insignificant.
This may be an odd question, but is there like a general age of the retirees that we currently have on the pension? You know, I said nobody's passed away. There are people in their 80s and their 90s, most are in their 50s.
Good question. I can get back to you on that. I'll let you know. I'll shoot Michael a note after the meeting. I can easily pull that from your census data. Off the top of my head, I don't know.
Out there, not
It's a good question.
I mean,
Yeah.
you say inactive members, there's 26, you said.
Yeah.
I can't even count 26 in my head, so that number include, spouses?
Correct. So current retirees, any disabled members, surviving spouses, and then the one that can also be easy to forget about is potentially deferred members entitled to future benefits. So members can declare their intent to retire if they don't meet the age criteria, but they have the service time, then they can kind of separate service, but then commence a retirement benefit at a later date. I don't, off the top of my head, again, I don't know if you have any members in that bucket, but that's what inactive members encompasses all those buckets.
Okay.
Yeah. Page 7 just shows you your breakdown again of the active and inactive members, 32 actives, 37 inactives in total. Benefit payments last year, $1.9 million. In our best estimate, 10 years from now, is that the fund would be paying out about $3.3 million in benefit payments on an annual basis. So definitely some increases coming. Yeah, 71% increase. It's significant.
Is it a 3% cost living on these?
Tier 1 members are entitled to a 3% increase in their benefit annually, correct? Page 8 is just summarizing the results of our assumption study. So there's a lot of information on this page. These are all the assumptions we analyzed as part of that latest study. Again, we do these studies every 3 to 5 years. It's been 4 years since the last study, probably about 4 years till the next one. Everything you see listed on this page together was a net increase of about $56,000 to the contribution. So again, 2.5 million. Not insignificant, however, it's not the primary driver of this year's contribution, these changes. We do, when we project out pay increases for members, rather than utilizing, like on the state side, they use one assumption for all funds. We look specifically at the collective bargaining agreement in place in the wage schedule for specific to Antioch police officers to give our best estimate of projecting out wages. That's what that bottom bullet point is about. There's a new CBA that was passed. Page 9 is the change in assets for the pension fund during the year. So you started May 124 at $17.5 million in the fund, ended $19.76 million as of April 30, 2025. Couple of items of note is the employer contribution. It was a good year to the village. The village kicked in $2,269,300, second line item. And then a couple lines below, you see the investment return over $1.6 million positive for the year. Investment returns were greater than expected. In that text box on the right, it was 8.94% net of all administrative expenses versus the expected 6.75. So beat that expectation by over 2%.
And I'm asking a lot of questions. Who manages the investment fund on this?
So great question again. Used to be managed locally. At this point in time, all of the assets of every downstate, again, not Chicago, police pension fund in the state of Illinois are managed by a 9-member board of appointed individual, of elected individuals. They're called Illinois Police Officers Pension Investment Fund, IPOP. IPOP manages, they outsource the investment management. There's a whole bunch of different players in terms of.
Are they trying to merge it with the fire?
At this point in time, I'm not aware of them trying to do that. There's one big fund for fire, one big fund for police. I want to say on the police side, it's right about $11 billion of assets under management of all of the pension funds.
Okay.
Yeah, secrets.
You said, still on page 7.
Yeah.
Current benefit payments are $1,935,000. That doesn't come out of our main budget. That's a separate fund.
That's right out of the police pension fund, right? So the idea is the village puts those monies in, like the $2.5 million we're talking about this year. And then the money that's in the pension fund is utilized to pay those benefits. So you're correct.
So we're putting in 2.5 million this year. And our officers, our police budget, Michael will correct me, is around 8.4 million. So we're 25% of our money's going, 25% of the police budget is coming, if I'm doing it right, out of our budget into the police department, or 2.5 million.
Significant. It's very significant.
And I imagine in 10 years, our police budget will be 11 million, 3 million more.
So what's going on? Yeah.
Okay, put you on the school board next
What's that?
year.
That's the
School
real
board next year.
Thank you.
Yeah, it's a significant portion of property taxes for residents of the community, for sure. Page 10 is our risk management comments from the full report. So a couple items we note here. These are factors we look at to assess the overall health of the fund. The first metric, we compare assets today against inactive liability. There is a shortfall there to the tune of about $11 million, right? There's $19.8 million in assets, 31.1 in inactive liability. So what we're getting at here is, in a perfect world, right? Ideal scenario, you would have the dollars in the fund today to cover all your inactive members. That would mean that any new money coming in from the village is really allocated towards today's police officers and their future retirement fund. The reality of the situation is there is a shortfall there. It means that as money comes into the fund, some of the dollars in the short term are going to need to be utilized to pay benefit payments today. So you don't get to capitalize on the investment returns over the next, 15, 20 years on every dollar that goes in. Another metric we look at here is this ratio of benefit payments to asset value. It tells us how much of the fund's assets on an annual basis are used to pay benefit payments. And it's 9.79%. So we consider that to be a moderate risk number. Anything above your expected rate of return on investments is kind of in that moderate risk category. And then our cutoff for high risk is about 12.5%. So you guys are pretty squarely within the moderate risk category. The idea to compare against the expected return is that each year on investment performance alone, we're anticipating the fund will get a 6.75% investment return. So with the fund paying out 9.79 in benefits, right? It's more than what you're expected to earn on investments. So it means that you have to draw upon some of those other cash inflows to the fund, namely village contributions, as well as member contributions to pay benefit payments in the short term. So similar story to that first metric. The good news, here's the kind of saving grace here, is last year, the same number, the 979, that was actually 10.61% last year. So that's a really substantial movement in the right direction. We want to see this movement downward. And the best thing as a village board that you can do to help this metric and move it in the right direction is by contributing that recommended contribution. It'll slowly get this number down further to the point of where it'll be an ideal situation.
Two thoughts here. The first one is, you said you represent 400 approximately organizations. And we're a moderate risk. How do we rate, compare it all together? Are we on the more deadly side, or are we on the better side? Maybe right in the middle.
Good question. I think that you're probably pretty close to the middle, honestly. And in terms of our client base, another metric I would consider, and it's not the best metric in the world, but funded percent. Funded percent is a little bit of a dangerous game because you can plug in different assumptions and change funded percent. So it's not necessarily the best comparison point when you look at different funds. But as of the end of 2022, the average police and fire pension funds in Illinois are sitting about 64% funded. So with you guys going back to that first page I went over, you're about 46% funded on that basis. You're a little bit behind, I would say, the state average. So when you say, where do we stack up in terms of our client base, kind of in the middle, maybe a little bit more on the bad side, the higher risk side of the equation.
Are we in the deadbeat category?
Not the deadbeat category. No, absolutely not. There's think South Chicago suburbs, that's the really, really bad. There's some incredibly poorly funded pension funds out there that are just not even getting even remotely close to recommended contribution. So the best thing you guys have going for you here is the fact that the village is much more on track in terms of contributing those recommended contribution amounts to the fund. That's That's the golden bullet that will fix basically all the problems to the extent the village can keep up with that recommendation.
And that's key to be still keep up with this, the $3.3 million in tax deal.
And it's
And, but there was a time, thank God, a lot of this part of this, where we were at that before. Yeah, you know, so we're not anymore, so thank God, a lot of this.
Yeah.
So, and the only other way besides the village contributing, next was the end user contributing more.
gotta come somewhere, right? The benefits are. Yeah, yeah, benefits are prescribed by state statute, so it's really just, you know, you can manipulate how much money goes in, you can't really change how much money goes out, which is what it is. And to that point, there's also discussions at the state level in conjunction with the extension of statutory minimum funding guidelines, potentially improving benefits, specific to tier 2 police officers. So who knows if that will pass or not, but they're talking about potentially increasing those benefits. Would lead to increased costs. The bottom of page 10 is a little sensitivity on expected rate of return. I think if it goes 6.75, you're in a good spot. It's a pretty reasonable assumption. For reference, I pop it, the Consolidated Police Board, they use a 6.8% expected rate of return. So you're at 6.75, 6.8, you know, pretty much right on the. Page 11 is the alternative contribution. So this is a little bit different. Everything I went through so far is based on the recommendation. We talked about statutory minimum funding policy. That's what we utilize to come up with this number. So that's that 90% funded by 2040, 90% in 15 years. Projected unit credit is the method for value and liability. You'll notice that alternative contribution is quite a bit less than our recommendation. It comes in at $2,086,437 versus that recommendation at just over $2.5 million. So $400,000 difference, primarily attributable to that 90% on stat min versus 100% that we're recommending for that funding target. Also projected unit credit versus entry age normal, but that's kind of in the weeds for next. All right, and then just wrapping up, last 2 slides in this, and one other deliverable I want to talk about, actually very relevant to the conversation we just had. On page 12 is going to show you a 5-year history of how much the village has contributed to the fund. That's the employer contribution you see in that second column for each fiscal year end. We compare that against the actuarially determined contribution. That's basically the recommended amount from 2 years prior. And you can see the village has done a really great job, right? Kudos to the village for funding this pension fund right at, you know, hovering right at that 99 to 101% each year of the recommended amount. So that's really the best thing going for the police pension fund is the fact that the village has made this commitment, has funded this recommended contribution on average over the last 5 years, 99.94% of the recommendation. So basically 100%. And then on page 13, we run out a long-term projection of cash flows. We assume the village going forward will continue what they've done over the last 5 years, contributing 99.94% of the recommendation. That's enough to keep the pension fund fully solvent, able to pay out all future benefit payments for the current membership. That's good. That helps out the village in their audit and the financial statements. Any other questions on this year's actuarial valuation results before I jump into this other item I want to discuss relatively briefly? Perfect. Then the other deliverable I passed around, separate a little document there, is some projections. So we were working with Michael on some projected funding scenarios for the Antioch Police Pension Fund. And so I would first direct you to page 1 and just, it summarizes those 3 scenarios we ran. So those first 3 bullet points, just to walk through what we're looking at here. The first scenario, and we'll run through the results really quick. We won't dig into it too much tonight. Is going to show you status quo. So do nothing. This is what we project recommended contributions to look like for the police pension fund. No changes to funding policy, just like our best estimate of what the future would look like. It does assume everything happens according to expectation. So for example, 6.75% investment return. In that scenario, we're assuming you get 6.75 every year on your investments for the police pension. The reality is you're going to see better years and worse years in the long term. The second bullet point there, the second scenario we model out, almost exactly identical to the first scenario. The difference is that every 5 years, so in today's 2025, right? So in 2030, 2035, and 2040, we model out what would it look like if investment returns were 10% less than expected. So your expected return is 6.75, 10% less than expected would be a negative 3.25% investment return. So it's maybe not a catastrophic scenario, but it's a less than ideal scenario, so that you can see how that would impact the recommended contribution under the current funding policy. And then finally, we model out a change in funding policy. It's a build out off of that second scenario, so it does include those 10% investment losses every 5 years. But in this scenario, we model out what a layered amortization would look like. So here's the quick summary of the difference. Single point amortization, which is what you're currently using, 100% funded by 2040. It means that no matter what happens on an annual basis, you're targeting to be 100% funded in the year 2040. Every year, there's changes in unfunded liability. Like we saw this year, there's a few different factors: the assumption study, demographic experience, investment experience. These are going to shift your unfunded liability from maybe what we expected to what it'll actually be. Sometimes it's good, sometimes it's bad, right? Sometimes it's an increase, sometimes it's a decrease. Under the single point amortization policy, by policy, what that means is funds got to be 100% funded by 2040. So whatever happens next year, you've got 14 years to pay that off. Whatever is the year after that, 13 years remaining. The year after that, 12 years remaining. The volatility risk there is, as you get really close to 2040, unexpected changes in unfunded liability have to be financed over continually shortening periods, right? So, for example, worst case scenario, 2039 happens, the market takes a 10% drop, and all of a sudden now you have to fund that 10% asset loss, and you have 1 year to fund it. So as you can imagine, that'll generate a very substantial increase to the contribution. That's a single point amortization. That's current policy. The proposed policy here, and I think it's a good fit for your pension fund in your community, is to implement what's called a layered amortization. The difference with this policy is that you continue to pay off your existing unfunded liability by 2040. What exists today will be paid off in full. But every year when there's a change in unfunded liability, instead of the year it's incurred, it's paid off over that continually shrinking period, you would set it up as a separate payoff of unfunded liability. So it would be at 15 years every year. So same scenario, 2039, you have a bad investment year, for example. Fingers crossed, hopefully that doesn't happen. Then instead of having to pay it off in 1 year, you'd have 15 years to pay it off. So it's very effective when it comes to managing the volatility of the contribution. It is a step away from your current policy and what is kind of the discussions that are happening at the state level in Illinois about extending that single point amortization target to 2050 or 2055. But the benefits, in my opinion, outweigh the disadvantages. You really have a policy in place that can exist forever. It can be viewed as a lot more fair to taxpayers when it comes to the standpoint of intergenerational taxpayer equity. Instead of today's taxpayers being burdened with getting the fund to 100% funded, instead it's every year, whatever the change is and whatever the residents of this community are experiencing, it's paid off over that subsequent 15 years. So it's a little bit more fair when it comes to that standpoint. And so it's very effective at managing contribution volatility. It's transparent, it's flexible, and it's also used very prevalently nationwide. Yeah.
I'm under the assumption we'll never reach 100% funding. There will always be chasing 100% funding. So what you're proposing is we keep shifting the chase. Every year we add another 15 years on, depending on what our unfunded amount is, correct?
That's basically correct. Yeah.
Okay. So if we were a board that had all sorts of money and would vote what anybody ever wanted and give them whatever they want and think money's no object, would we be able to say, go out and get a loan and pay off the whole $23 million unfunded liability and then reduce those yearly payments to whatever we're paying off on the loan?
Theoretically, absolutely yes. A lot of communities in Illinois have done that. They've issued, it's called pension obligation bonds, or there's other ways. It doesn't necessarily have to be a pension obligation bond, but it is an option on the table. A few years ago, when we were in a really low interest rate environment, it was a pretty attractive option because if you could go out and take out bond debt at, let's just say, for example, 5%, and then you use that money to then fully fund the police pension fund, a fund where your expected return on investments is 6.75, right? You're paying 5% interest on your debt, but you're earning 6.75 interest on your investments. It's a pretty nice, pretty savvy financial move. Nowadays, current interest rate environment, obviously rates are a little bit higher than they used to be a few years ago. They're dropping right now. It makes it a little bit less of an attractive option. However, it's still, I think, something worth consideration. I mean, it's always out there. You could fully fund. The difference is then you're trading the annual payment towards unfunded liability in the police pension fund for servicing those bonds, basically debt service in the bond issuance.
But we would still never catch the unfunded liability because, as we know, the police department always costs us more money.
There's always the risk that you could then have, so right now you have two components of your recommended contribution: normal cost, payment towards unfunded liability. You do the bond issuance, you replace that payment towards unfunded liability, debt service on the bond payment. There's always the risk that in the future, lots of things, bad investment returns, all these other things, right? Market risk, you could then you could now have three components to the contribution: normal cost, still payments towards unfunded liability, and then servicing those pension obligation bonds. So, and we've worked with communities, it's a little bit, it comes down to timing, right? Because when you make that initial contribution from the pension obligation bond, what if the market is stellar the next day? It's going to be really good for you because now you have an upfront investment gain to capitalize over the next 15 years. But if the market takes a downturn after those contributions are deposited, then you lose a lot of that, momentum that you would get from the compound interest on that investment.
So just 2008 when we had no money to pay our police pension.
Sorry, this might be a tough question, but, those southern suburb towns you said are, I'll take deadbeats, but underfunded. We're all putting our money into the same fund. How are we protected? Say we get to 100% and the market takes when we're 100%. How are we protected that we're not going to use our funds to cover somebody else's fund that's underfunded? Is there a protection there?
So as it stands, good question. As it stands, you guys are really nailing it with the questions, by the way. As it stands right now, the way the legislation is written is it says there will be no commingling of funds. So despite the fact that it is one investment vehicle, right? It certainly attracts big players like Morgan Stanley or Northern Trust are all of a sudden like, are they going to get their hands on that and manage those investments? Whereas when the funds were held locally, it's like, they wouldn't even touch that with a 10-foot pole, right? It's like, oh, it's tiny peanuts to them. So it's economies of scale in terms of the benefit of the consolidation of the investments. As it stands, no commingling of funds. Okay. So it is one big portfolio, but effectively you have a percentage ownership in that portfolio, and they can't, take from Peter to pay Paul situation. Legally,
theoretically.
Theoretically, yeah.
Thank you.
So last couple of things I'll just touch on is showing you guys the numbers of what these projections look like. It's a ton of information, so I don't want to give you guys a headache on an evening here, but page 5 is summarizing what that projection looks like. This is status quo. This is no changes. So kind of take in that information as you will. A lot of information. I would highlight a couple things is that what you'll notice is that towards the middle there, you see the recommended contribution. That's probably the most important column. That and the last one, percent funded. You see percent funded, we get you guys to 2040, you'd be 99.64% funded. That's that 100% funded by 2040, this current goal. Correspondingly, if you notice the recommended contribution, it does bump up. It gets pretty high there. It gets up to 4,198,000 in 2039. And then at that point, you've paid off almost all the unfunded liability. The payment drops off substantially in 2040 and 2040. So that's status quo. Next page, page 6, status quo, but assume every 5 years you get a bad investment return, -3.25%, 2030, 2035, 2040. Now look at the way that pans out in terms of that recommended contribution. In 2039, and this is a potential risk, right, to the fund, your contribution will go up to $8.6 million.
So this is a $16 million hit.
It's huge.
It's huge. If we take plan number 2, we're going to be over time spending $16 million more in recommended contribution.
One clarification to that: plan number 2 is not necessarily a plan. It's just status quo. But we're just saying if you get bad investment returns every 5 years, so we're demonstrating the risk under the current policy with that scenario. Not saying it will happen, not saying it won't happen, but this is kind of what it could look like. if you have bad investments every 5 years. Then, and really, and the purpose of that is to compare really against page 7. So really, the purpose of these projections is to compare pages 6 and 7. So that you can see under a layered amortization policy, how this would mitigate that risk. So if you notice, there's a little bit of a trade-off there. So if you go to page 6, if you notice in 2040, your fund would be 95% funded. You're basically going to get over 100% funded in that subsequent year. Now, if you go to the layered amortization, page 7, again, this is assuming you get those negative 10% returns every 5 years. But if you notice here in 2039, instead of the $8.6 million contribution, we're looking at a contribution of $4.76 million. So really, the purpose of us doing these projections is to demonstrate the benefit under a layered amortization policy of mitigating that contribution volatility risk. The trade-off being that if you notice on the funded percent status, in 2041, on page 6, you get up to 104% funded. Page 7, with the layered amortization, the fund's at 90% funded. So you don't necessarily get to 100% funded as quickly. But when it comes to looking at a contribution of having to make $8.6 million contribution from the village, I mean, it would be presumably, their entire budget, maybe then some. This is a more sustainable policy. And with the layered amortization, if it's approved by the police pension board and made for this year's recommended contribution, to the extent that the village can kind of stick up with that, it's something you can have forever. So you don't have to constantly be revisiting, oh, it's 2040 and now it's getting close, so we need to extend it. Like the state of Illinois is stuck in the cycle of picking a date, we get close to it, they extend it out, it happens again, it happens again, it happens like 10 times already, right? This is a policy where you implement 15-year layered amortization, you could have it forever. You'll constantly have an improving funded percent to your pension fund. You won't necessarily achieve 100% funded at any one specific point in time because you're always going to have 15 years of unfunded liability bases that are being paid off. However, it's kind of a long-term, more feasible strategy when it comes to contribution. So then pages 8 and 9 is just, it charts out that information. So it's a graphical representation. And it shows you the benefits, the kind of the differences between the two. So page 8 is comparing that 15-year layered amortization, the blue line, against the single point amortization, the gray line. And you notice how the gray line just skyrockets up to, that crazy numbers, 8.6 million. On that layered amortization, you get to about 4.7. The trade-off being page 9, funded percent doesn't go up as quickly. So that's the benefits and the risks.
Well, just for my clarity, the first set of figures you have here is our current state of affairs.
Correct.
Okay. Just wanted to make
Current state, everything according to expectation, perfect world, status quo.
Second set of figures is we're 65 million, whatever. That's worst case scenario, single point, continuing as we are right now.
Pretty much. I know it could always be worse, but it's showing you negative 10% investment returns every 5 years, still current funding policy, 15 years single.
Okay, and then the third chart is what you're recommending, which is just a $6 million.
Correct.
With
still shows the volatility on the market, right? So it still shows those bad years, which by the way, the reason why we have to show those bad years is because if you ask, I'm an actuary, right? You asked me to do a projection. What am I going to give you? I'm going to give you a projection assuming expected and actual are the same, right? Like otherwise, why would I have the assumption? So I can't really demonstrate the difference on a layered amortization basis if all the plan experience follows expectation, because then you theoretically would have $0 change in unfunded liability every year. There would be no new unfunded liability. So that's why we implement the volatile market returns to kind of show you if things don't go according to expectation, this would be the difference. So that's why we show that. So page 7 is not necessarily what future contributions would look like, but it is what future contributions would look like if you get those bad investment years every 5 years. So you get the negative 325, 2030, 2035. With the layer. And ultimately, I'm going to be attending the police pension board meeting in Q4. And we're going to talk to the police pension board a little bit more about this policy and about implementing it. And ultimately, they'll kind of make a decision at that board meeting. We're engaged through the police pension board to do the actuarial reporting, right? So they'll make their funding recommendation. Here's one key thing I want the village board to be aware of, is that this year by policy, we're paying off all unfunded liability over 15 years. The layered amortization discussion is about how you would pay off changes in unfunded liability over 15 years. So this year, you're already paying off the change in unfunded liability over 15 years. So if the police pension board decides to adopt the layered amortization policy for this year, it will actually have no impact whatsoever on the recommended contribution. It'll still be that $2.5 million you saw. Where you will see that impact is in future years, but then you're not gonna have it, like, that'll be the new policy, right? So going forward, that'll be the recommendation of the police pension.
What if we just paid more, we had a surplus each year?
I don't think the police pension board would be averse to that, right? If you've got some extra money to deposit, it's always a good thing.
Okay,
It's just like, again, going back to the mortgage example,
sure,
right?
sure.
Get some extra dollars and you throw it in your mortgage, guess what? You're gonna save a ton more in interest by putting that money in upfront on even on a 15-year mortgage, than you would to just, say stack the money to the side.
What age do they face mortality risk?
So mortality rates that's a tough question. They're very complicated. There's not necessarily, it's not just, we don't just say like everybody dies at this age, right? It's a probability of mortality at every single year of sex. It's exactly, right? So it's different for males, it's different for females, it's different for someone who's 25 years old today, someone who's 65 years old today. That's called generational mortality improvement. The idea is that as we progress over time, advances in medical technology, advances, people are gonna live longer.
Plus we buy them all cigarettes.
It's gonna keep, yeah, well, right, we go back to those days. That would help out the police pension fund in a huge way. We just put a cigarette dispenser in the police department, and then we won't even have a pension problem.
Now 58 and a half.
Yeah. Well, of note when it comes to mortality, kind of a shocking realization that we had in studying and analyzing mortality rates is mortality for police and firefighters is actually lower. So longevity for police and firefighters is longer than the average American.
Spouse.
And spouses will crush you too. You get a significantly younger spouse, all of a sudden you're having to pay out benefits for a lot longer than you.
They're retiring young and get these young wives and husbands.
Yeah.
So they're all living.
It hurts.
Gotta get both smoking.
Yeah.
All right, thank you. Can you email this to us, the second portion?
Absolutely. Michael's got it. I'm sure he can distribute it to the full board. Is that okay?
I can put it in ChatGPT and make sure I understand.
There you go. What does this say? What did Kevin just say to me? Well, thank you guys so much. You asked really great questions. Good to see the village board interested and engaged in the conversation. And obviously, this is a really important cash flow item. And the decisions we're talking about today about funding policy changes, this will impact the entire future of your community, right? And I do firmly believe that with this layered amortization, it's going to be a good fit for the long-term health of the community and the taxpayers.
You do that without it, right?
There is interest included. Yeah.
So you do factor a little bit in.
6.75%, whatever the expected return is the interest.
Thank you.
Any other questions from anybody before that?
Michael, do you have something?
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Just a couple items, so going back to, where does Antioch sit in comparison to the other communities? So I'm just nerdy enough to take the Illinois Department of Insurance biannual report and convert it from PDF to Excel, take out all the bad data and just have what's left as the funded side of it. And you're actually ranked 325 out of 356 police pension funds, so pretty well down. Point to be made though is this is the only study where the state of Illinois is using their minimum statutorial guidelines or rules and saying that this is under projected unit credit, 9% funded is the target level group. And that is not what you're doing whatsoever. You're using entry age normal, 100% target. And so if everybody was, if these numbers were based on the entry age normal 100%, you would not be in that same position. You easily could be climbing up on it. But this is the only set of numbers where they actually have all of the pension funds listed. Again, using the bad state statute numbers or their assumptions in that, this is the only numbers that you're able to compare everybody to, and that's why you're at that lower number, if you will. Jeff and I, we had met with Kevin and I talked to Kevin, And I thought, just as Kevin's saying, that this is actually a great time, that because we're like into the 17th, 18th year of the current 2040 plan, that we're beyond the 15th, we're at the 17th, 18th year, I think. And this is the time that we can actually get into the layer and lock us into a better funding plan than chasing the state's number, which is like remortgaging your house. You get so far along, you go, let's remortgage it and put it out again. Let's remortgage it and put it out again. You're continually taking that debt and just pushing out, and it's just worse and worse and worse. People that are using the state pension funds, villages that are using the state's minimum projected unit credit 9% target level, they actually are underfunding for the first 13, 14 years, I think. So it kind of goes like this when you're showing you the chart and you have this entry age normal. Projected unit credit is like this. This is all underfunded. And it just recently, they're funding beyond the entry age normal piece. They're never going to get to this. They can't afford it. And so then they push it back out, like they're saying, to 2055, and you reset everything. And by design, you're underfunding. That's not what Antioch's doing. You may have done that in the past because you're sitting on $23 million unfunded liability. So something happened. It could have been that the municipality was underfunding the pension fund. It could be because the actuals compared to the assumptions came out worse. And he gave you a couple of examples, like somebody leaving earlier, so you didn't have enough money coming in, you didn't have enough time to invest to set up for that person, but now they left you early, and then they're getting a longer payment period. All these different little things make a difference in their overall debt, which now it's sitting on you at 23 million. So when is Antioch really doing well with money? Yeah, but you're still sitting on $23 million debt, and needs to be solved. You're not, and this layered idea, like you said, this is not trying to put all of this debt on the current generation that's here for this most current 15 years. It kind of spreads it out generationally without you kicking the can down the road, which is what's happening when they keep pushing out the years from 2040 to 2050, 2055. You're remortgaging and you're pushing out. You're kicking the can down the road and putting it on the children, right? That's not what the layer does. And I think that's where we're going to come back. My plan was to come back to have pension funding policy. So there's the pension board side, which they're going to want something, and then there's the village side. We would like something. What you ultimately want is kumbaya. Everybody's together on the same page. That doesn't happen throughout the state. You have pension boards that say, this is what we need to be doing. And this guy's like, oh no, I think we should be using a rate of return of 8%, and drop their contributions. Then we should be using projected unit credit at 90% target. And that's where wars break out really between the two. It's bad blood. And the problem is, again, you're just putting all this debt on the children. Work together, agree to the policy, and we're all on the same page. Now we know things are going to get paid off timely in a more responsible manner. And so I'll be coming back to you, and I need to do this before the tax levy actually. But the first year, the tax levy is still going to be 2.6, 2.5. Either way, I think probably projected unit credit. They're all going to be
Technically different on Puck, like,
okay,
but yeah.
So entry age normal and layered, they're going to be the same number, 2.5 million. Yep. So we should be fine either way, but I'm still planning on having that policy in my front. As far as mortality goes, very respected actuaries, well recognized. If you'd had an Italian actuary, they would not only tell you when people are going to die, they'll tell you who's going to die.
I know. I like that, Sean.
Being serious.
Any questions?
You have to steal that one.
All right. All right, well, thank you. And when's this coming back, like you said, before the levy? Okay. All right, item number 3 is discussion regarding permits for group use of village-owned park facilities. Director Katie?
Director Katie?
Yeah.
Okay, good evening, can you hear me? Great, I'm going to the top of my document. Okay, so tonight I wanted to talk to you guys about a way that I think we can significantly improve some of the activities and issues that we've been experiencing at a lot of our parks, most notably probably Seapoint Creek. And I'm gonna go through some things with you and best practices that other park districts, cities, villages, and things like that do in order to try to enforce or to be able to stop these types of behaviors and park uses. So here we go. Currently, our Parks and Recreation Department issues rental permits for only specific park pavilions, Centennial, Peterson, Springer, Tim Osmond, and Williams. However, in order to reduce liability, did you have a question?
No.
Oh, okay, ensure public safety, manage our park resources, and prevent conflicts between park users, I'm proposing that we create an ordinance to require a permit and user fee at any and all parks if specific circumstances apply. Several local organizations, municipal organizations in the area have ordinances just like this. I have a list of about 10 if you'd like to know who they are. In the proposed ordinance, we would require a permit and a fee for park usage if any of the circumstances that I'm going to tell you about apply. And I can go into the reasons for them if you have questions on them, but I don't want to take up too much of your time. So one, if the group size is more than, in my opinion, 15 people, some larger places have it for 100 people or 25 people, but Antioch is 15,000 people and 15 people feels reasonable to me. Did you have a question? No, sorry. You look
I'm
like
agreeing with you.
Oh, okay. It looked like you were like, okay. If any event is publicly advertised, so how many times on Facebook have you guys seen, oh, we're having a concert at Seapoint Creek Park this summer? And we're like, what? We had no idea, don't know anything about that. If it is a commercial activity, so any kind of activity where that involves making money, such as selling food, merchandise, services, anything like that would require a permit. Obviously, we have our farmers market and things like that. That is all through us. That's a permitted event through our department. It would also include private fitness classes. So a lot of times in our parks and open spaces, for example, the Hill by the band shell, you can find personal trainers there using our property as their training grounds to make their clients run hills. That's really not the best use of that. You can't have our property, is where you're making money. So that would require a park permit, or excuse me, a park usage permit for that. Anytime they're going to be using electric equipment or structures, okay? So that could damage our park, our resources if they plug in something that's if the electrical outlet can't hold that amount of electricity. So it would be things like inflatables or bounce houses, anytime they're putting up a tent or a canopy, use of existing electrical outlets or bringing in a generator, any stages, scaffolding or any other temporary type structures, any type of rented equipment. So if they're bringing in tables and chairs, we should know that they're having something there. If they're bringing in lightings or renting games or having an inflatable screen, heaters, fans, decor, things like that, we would want to be aware of those types of events or use of that park. Anytime there's amplified sound, whether that's from an amplified sound on a personal speaker is one thing, but if you're bringing in a DJ or, what do they call them, a party box, I think JBL, I want to get one, has a party box if it's a large portable speaker, things like that, or any type of public address system, we would want to know about those coming in. And then high impact activities, so that would be any sort of organized events, right? Competitions, a run or a walk, a fundraiser, a family reunion that's going to have a lot of people there. Anytime there's a hired entertainment or a contractor of any kind, such as food catering, animal shows, jugglers, musicians, pony ride, petting zoos. Right now, we don't have anything that would stop a resident from bringing a petting zoo to Seapoint Creek Park. So we can't enforce it. So I think that this would be a really good idea. Anytime, I know, anytime, an organization or a group or a resident would like to have exclusive use of the space. So all of our parks are first come, first served, right? However, if a person is renting an area, we need to be able to permit them, we need to be able to give them permission when it's reasonable and allow them, the exclusive use of that space through permitting. Yes, of course.
So would they get a certificate of insurance?
Oh, yes.
Okay,
Oh, yes.
Get it off your.
I'm getting nervous listening.
Oh, no, don't worry.
You can get that off your home or state.
Yes, and we currently do alcohol permits if folks wanna rent, a, you know, a pavilion or something and have alcohol at their event. We require them to get, a dram shop, yeah, license and certificate for that one day, otherwise they can't have it. So there's that. The next thing is alcohol consumption, so I believe we covered that. And then, obviously, we would need liability insurance, which we just talked about. And those are the main reasons why I think this is important. I came up with 7 examples today that I could recall where this would have been a good thing for us to have in place. I'll just briefly go over them. I think you might enjoy it. We had an outside group, a day camp come, and they were using the pavilions at Williams Park for their lunch all summer long. And just sitting there and using the pavilion, which is fine normally, right? But there was probably 50 to 75 kids there. And our own day camps had exclusive use of that space for our lunch at that time, and they wouldn't move. And we're like, you can't be here. And they're like, make us leave. Can't. We had a private business that appeared to be another day camp, run out of what I would assume a person's home, using Williams Park to check in and check out her day campers. The parents, she had a table and a chair and sign in here, and they would, parents would come, show up, but, you know, sign their kids in somewhere, and then she put them on a vehicle and drove them away. So I think that that is something we should be addressing. Then we had another daycare, like a summer daycare, show up to Seafoot Creek Park. I'm sure you all heard about it. It was on the internet. With 50 to 75 kids who took over the splash pad at Seacoit Creek, and it was unusable by anybody else really in the community. We know that they were a group because they showed up with buses, and they were all wearing red t-shirts that said the name of their daycare. But we couldn't say anything. We couldn't do anything, and we couldn't say, hey, you need to let us know next time, or you can't take over this space. We've had several families hosting birthday parties, which, you know, if you're hosting a birthday party, great, have fun, you know, whatever, but they're out at Seacoit Creek Park and they are decorating the pergolas. They are using all of the tables and chairs and pulling them in for their party. They're taking over the splash pad or the playground and things like that. And that is not really what our parks are designed for unless we have said, yes, you know, it's gone through a checks and balances process. There was an unpermitted choir concert held at the Performance Pavilion. I found out about that one on Facebook. Jim Moran and I walked over to get coffee at the park one day. Was it Jim? I think. And there was a band setting up to play. They had speakers and guitars and drums, and they were filming. It was like their own private concert. And last but not least, this one's my personal favorite. A couple planned their wedding at Seacoit Creek Park on Saturday, this past weekend. And last week, the bride called to inform us that we needed to power wash the pavilion prior to her wedding ceremony. And when we said, ma'am, I'm sorry, but you can't have your wedding in Seacoit Creek Park, the groom called later in that week, but he didn't call us. He called Magic Dave, who was doing a performance at Seacoit Creek Park that we had hired him for Seacoit Saturdays. And he called Magic Dave and said, you can't perform there. I'm having my wedding at 3 o'clock. And Magic Dave's, I don't know what you're talking about. I've been hired by the village and they're paying me. And they asked if Magic Dave could reschedule his performance, to which he said no. And then they showed up early and tried to intimidate him into canceling his show and rushing him out so that they could set up. He was scheduled to be there by us from 1 to 2 o'clock, but their ceremony was at 3. So that didn't work out. And those are the 7 examples that I came up with today to share with you all of why I believe that this is important, that I would like to know if I have your blessing to go ahead and draft an ordinance for you all to review and look at so that we have the ability to keep the integrity of our park system mostly open for public use without groups and things taking place and taking over what should be a community amenity, not a individual one.
Just for openness here, at one point I did have a birthday party for a child, we haven't been sleep there.
Oh my God, are you joking?
But this was years ago, it's at Centennial Park. You know, but we rented the pavilion, we told them we were having it there.
I didn't work here, I don't care. That's hysterical.
Just for openness there.
I love it.
But my questions are, how are we gonna inform people so that they don't show up with their wedding gown on saying, well, I thought this was a public park, I could use it if I want to.
So thrilled you asked. I was gonna go baby steps, but I'm gonna go right into it if you want. So after we get an ordinance drafted and everybody agrees and there's rules and we have processes and all of this stuff, then I'll be coming to you to ask for signage. We need to have signage in all of our parks so that you can't claim that, oh, it's on our website somewhere, you should have known that. We need to have signage in our parks that tells people, we've done our due diligence at that time. And we can say, there's a sign, I'm the director of Parks and Recreation, beat it, you know? Not that I would say it like that, but, or our police officers or our community service officers can enforce the rules because it's very publicly available on signs.
Those are my 2 questions, signs and notification.
Yes.
And enforcement, because
Yeah.
I can't see you trying to enforce something. I mean, we had one parks employee who tried to enforce no riding bicycles and that didn't go well for her. You know,
Yeah.
so we want to make sure it's done properly.
Yeah, absolutely. And you know, there's a level of enforcement, right? We're not gonna enforce every single thing, you know, if we don't know about it, we don't see it, or if it's not bothering, like whatever. But we need to be able to have something to fall back on if there is a problem that arises. You know, I think we're all reasonable people, you know, but so if somebody's there like practicing with their acoustic guitar and having fun and like, great, that's just entertainment. But maybe not setting up a band and using our electricity and filming and having a whole concert.
Yeah, well, I have no problem with it. I think it's a good idea, probably about time. There's other things we need to do in the Sequoia Creek Park that I hope are in the works at some point. But
They're all up here, trustee.
I'm gonna have to tell Cheryl that everything's off.
I have a question. So at this moment, a kinder care, some little daycare pulls up with a bus, unloads, 15 kids, 17 kids,
50 to 75.
75. One of them falls and breaks their arm.
That's
Who's
exactly,
liable?
that is exactly the problem. It would be very difficult, I would imagine, and of course, give me this, Ellie, speak up, that we would be named in some sort of lawsuit because any parent would probably try to sue everybody that they could. But, we didn't know that they were coming, right? So we couldn't have asked for a certificate of insurance, but I would assume that would be a very big headache for the village.
Yes.
Do you have anything to add?
It would be a big headache for the village.
And I presume we have somebody whose initials start with an F, the J, all over social media talking about how we abuse the park people.
I'm unfamiliar.
To actually benefits, you can, most insurance companies will get lower limits of liability at 300. They'll give you $1 million for the day. They don't want to do the paperwork. So you can request $1 million, the village be additional insured.
Yeah, we do all of those things.
Right.
currently, Yeah,
Yeah.
but we have higher limits usually for the big groups. Make them do like, commercial groups have to do $1 million.
I'm talking a birthday party.
Oh, yes,
I'm talking a birthday party where you can get it right off your homeowner's policy.
Yes.
Additional insurance. The insurance company, they don't wanna do the paperwork, they'll just get the $1 million for free one day.
I see what you're saying, thank you.
So, and then you can refer them to like K&K where they can get the draft shop.
Mhm. That's what we currently do.
Yeah.
I don't know if it's K, but we do
Yeah.
refer them to
There's a
draft,
couple-
yeah.
There's a couple easy online ones, big.
Yep.
And it's gotta make sure that it's additional insured.
Yes. Absolutely. I was in risk management for 15 years. We're speaking the same language. Mhm. Yeah.
Just a quick question. We currently rent out some facilities as is, so we don't have anything in our books, ordinances, nothing that covers that? Or was that just some,
Facilities?
yeah, like
indoor
Williams Park or
facilities, William-
something else? Cause I know there's a process, right? Cause I mean, you
Yes.
can rent it out. So
Yes.
are we doing that under just existing past histories? Or are we doing that under an ordinance that we passed at some point? Or the past
The-
boards have done? Or-
The ordinances that I have read, do not include any of this type of verbiage. There may be a policy or, an internal type of thing. Which we have, like, if you're gonna use the Dolly Spearing Community Center, these are the facility rules and what you need to do when you come in and what you need to, those kinds of things. But there is nothing that is, higher than that to enforce, to my knowledge. Does that sound correct to you? Yeah. I read it through pretty. Does anyone else has questions? Sorry.
Obviously with the legal team, I'll say, obviously there's certain constitutional things that we cover.
Absolutely,
Yeah.
yes. Mhm.
Certain,
I'm all for it. Let's do it.
Okay, thank you.
all right, thank you.
That was so much
Thank you.
easier than I thought. I love you guys.
This next one. So IML has been pushing this, and we did it with PZB right after the election. We're supposed to do it. They asked us to do this with all our boards, like just a quick board training for everybody. Right after the election.
Right after.
And every time we got a cow, I said, there's too many things on the cow, I'm kicking this, and this is supposed to be a short cow, so I said, we'll do a quick board training, so even though there's new trustees that have been here 3-4 months, they're a little more seasoned now, we're a little late in the game on this, but yeah, I think most communities, and we're talking at the Lake County Municipal League, I think we're one of the only ones that doesn't do like an in-house thing. I know when I personally got put on the planning and zoning board, I had no clue what they were talking about, what I was supposed to do. So he did hit the planning and zoning board. We'll keep this very brief, just to not say we did it, but say we did it, and then get to the department reports. Jimmy, you've done this other places.
I've done this, yeah, many suburbs, in the south suburbs, and some in the northern suburbs. But anyway, this will be the worst presentation you've seen tonight. So some of this is kind of redundant. So I always started out this way, the congratulations, you're now legally responsible for potholes, and how not to get indicted in Illinois, beginner's guide to most. That's me, kind of a chubby photo, but we always start out with this introduction. So the seminar agenda will be office duties, money, ethics and conflicts, meetings, Open Meetings Act, Freedom of Information Act, record retention, and hints, questions, and comments. So the first part will be offices and duties. And then one thing to keep in mind, I do like this quote, that in City Hall and local government, you have to get facts and stuff about drama. We are here to do business, and one of the things I do like that we do is we have a committee of the whole meeting, which allows for an executive meeting. So we vet out our issues at the committee of the whole or in closed session as applicable. Then we go through and we vote at the executive board meeting. That doesn't mean there's not discussion then, but most of the work can be done beforehand. Offices and duties. So we have a mayor, we have trustees, we have the clerk and treasurer, and we have other. The village structure. So the mayor serves as the CEO. The trustees act collectively. You are a voting body to ask about public policy issues and then vote on those public policy issues. And the clerk records business, or the deputy clerk or recording secretary. Congratulations. And then the administrator manages the operations. The very important roles. The administrator in this form of government is there to manage the day-to-day. The president or mayor leads meetings and appoints people, breaks ties when voting, represents the village externally, and generally acts as the chief executive officer. Chief executive officer of the village, and that's a fundamental in our Illinois law. So it reads, the mayor or the village president is the chief executive officer of the village. There's not merely ceremonial title, it confers real substantial executive authority that has been challenged by courts. Oversees the day-to-day, that's delegated to the administrator, of course, directs and supervises department heads, including police chief, public works director, and finance officers, implements ordinances and policies passed by the board, and serves as the official representative and spokesperson of the municipality. The executive role is critical. So the mayor sets the pace and ensures the law is followed, and in this form of government at times votes as well. Under the municipal code, department head report to the mayor, who leads the village's administration. They go through the designees, which is the administrator and the assistant administrator. And the mayor oversees planning, crisis response, and daily operations. Obviously, with the appointment, removal powers, that's through the administrator and through the assistant administrator. The board of trustees, so the board passes legislative enactments, passes rules by vote. Individuals do not have authority as a trustee. The board acts as a collective. It's a legislative body. The board and the mayor set policy in obviously conjunction and staff support. So there's a staff report. There's appointed officers come in with ideas, and they are vetted through the administrator, assistant administrator, or other department heads, finance, for example. And then that goes to the board for placement on an agenda, and collective decisions are binding. So you all vote, and then that becomes law or policy that we enact. The legislative and fiscal general authority. So the role of the board of trustees, the board does not manage daily operations. That's the mayor's role. Instead, the board serves as legislative and fiduciary function. I don't really want to focus too much on the fiduciary function because that comes with a lot of details, but this is a legislative body that controls the purse strings of the municipality. That is what this body is here to do. They act collectively through votes and through this deliberative process. Responsibilities, roles. Adhere to official channels of communication. Questions for village administration be directed to the appropriate department and our officers in the week. Here we have administrator, assistant administrator, or the mayor, but the day-to-day is generally operated by administrator, assistant administrator. Village staff are not within the province of the board. There's really, the lines of communication should go through the administrator or assistant administrator. And I have seen this does not happen here, but in some, let's say, less sophisticated municipalities, you will literally have a trustee give a direction to a department head and another trustee come over in a car and give a different direction to a department head. I am not making that up. I literally saw that happen, or I shouldn't say saw it, but I experienced that in a 1 day, couple hour period of time. Like, don't work on that pothole, you should go over there. And they said, no, get this done right now. So if you're a department head, what do? You say, well, you came here first, so you get the answer. Or do you say, I don't have any clue because you're two people of equal legislative. It does create a bad situation. That's why we have a hierarchy of department heads. The board members prepare for engaged discussion on agenda items in advanced meetings, review all material in the board pack in timely and early fashion. And feel free to come prepared with questions or ask them of the administrator, assistant administrator, myself, finance, point. Boards act as a collective whole, as we talked about. And it's important, like I said, I have seen it. I've seen department heads come in very frustrated. Not here, but I would be remiss not to, I have a colorful background in some municipalities, and I would be remiss not to share that. So it is hard when you get conflicting directions from people of equal authority or of different type of power than an executive branch or administrative branch authority. Social media, Open Meetings Act. So all meetings are subject to the Open Meetings Act. A meeting is any gathering of a majority of a quorum of board of trustees of a public body. Posting in or commenting on social media can constitute a meeting subject to OMA. The Open Meetings Act does not, like all laws lag behind facts and reality. So if all the board members were on a Facebook post posting on each other, or about things with each other, you could violate the open meetings Act. I would ask all questions at the end, but if it's urgent or germane, feel free.
Does the Open Meetings Act control trustees posting on Facebook individually?
So this is where I get concerned. It's a good question. This is where I get concerned. If one trustee posts and then two more post, it is a majority of the quorum. And then you trigger it. That's where I get concerned about it. I am not the Open Meetings Act police, but I am the one to tell you where we can walk into levels of liability. So and let's take the extreme hypothetical. If everyone in this room was on one Facebook post that everyone was in the outside world was watching, and there were posts going back and forth, it would clearly be a meeting, right? If we exchanged emails at one point in time, it would be a meeting. Facebook would serve as the same. Now, again, the law never catches up with facts. Any lawyer will tell you that, and you work with the law. We're always one step behind. But as I have to give you legal advice, my legal advice is be careful with Facebook if you know other people are posting on there, or Facebook at all. To be honest, I have to say that. I know it's a way to communicate. I know people do it all the time. I communicate via LinkedIn all the time, but I am not an elected official. No one would vote for me. But it is something that could happen. If everybody, we can all agree that if we all exchanged emails on a topic, we'd be violating the Open Meetings Act, correct? Correct. How is that different than a Facebook post where it becomes a conversation about public policy that has not been posted? That's my concern. Always has.
So if one trustee got on Facebook and was really complaining about a village policy or take action, and other trustees joined in, and
It would,
that'd be able to be.
it would trigger a meeting. So if you get to a majority of the quorum, it would trigger a meeting under the Open Meetings Act.
So, but if one trustee got on Facebook and said, "Oh, I love the rainbow being green,"
Well, that doesn't, I mean, I don't know anyone in the village can create a rainbow. But, so that's private, if that makes sense. So it's more, I really don't like Seacoy Creek Park because it's too pretty. And then everybody chimes in, that would be me. Obviously, if you want to talk about how great the Bears are, yeah, we can all do that. That's not a public forum, it's not a public conversation. Or a public business. But it becomes it when we start segueing into public policy. It's murky, not clear. We've been through Freedom of Information Act issues. We've been through Open Meetings Act issues. It's my job to give conservative advice. Corporate authorities consist of 7 members. No more than 2 should post or comment on social media or any village matter. I kind of beat that to death, I think. So again, individual use of village related may constitute state action, making private Facebook pages effectively public. So there was just a recent case, I think we all know, I think we talked about it multiple times, about the designation of private versus public. You can't bleed into the two. You have to be very careful about that. The law is still evolving about that. Law has not caught up with AI. The law has not caught up with social media even. Law moves slow.
You're talking about if you're posting under your personal account versus your elected official account. Where do they end up on that with like the cases that
you can demarcate, you can do private.
And I know we've had the previous board member like blocking people and stuff like that.
Blocking people becomes a problem. It becomes problematic to block people. It becomes a real problem when you start blocking someone, not others, from the village account or your village trustee account, because then what they say is you're violating the first amount, but now on that.
Okay.
I could do a memo on that.
It's less germane right now, but I just.
Yeah.
But we don't have public accounts. We don't have accounts that are funded by the village.
I am merely telling you what the laws. I didn't know that. I didn't know if they're public account, private accounts, or some permutation thereof. But let's not get them. I mean, I don't know. Like the village should operate as a whole, right? Like the village operates as an organism, just like a corporation or an LLC or a partnership. And to have separate public accounts is a different thing. So these are important duties of the board. They adopt ordinances and policies that set the legal framework. They appropriate funds, adopt budgets, approve contracts. They set tax levies. Authorizing expenditures and act as stewards of the public trust to ensure transparency and fiscal responsibility. Just wrote that. So the board's power over spending is significant. Obviously, I probably said this many times. The board controls the purse. It's the board's job to ensure money is spent in appropriate manners. And that's the biggest thing the board does, or one of the biggest things they do, other than ensure compliance with applicable law. The balance ensures policy decisions and spending are deliberative, representative, and the execution is focused on accountable and efficient manners. Did I go backwards? Okay, so again, the mayor is the CEO, mayor directs departments and enforces the bill's laws and policies, and the board controls the purse strings, staff laws, and oversees the mayor's administration, budget, policy setting, and forth. Their both roles are vital. At the end of the presentation, it's a very boring topic. Try to make it a little bit lighter. If you remember the 3 branches of government from Schoolhouse Rock, if anyone, I'm probably dating myself at this point in time. There's really only 2 here. There is a judicial function. We do have hearing officers, but there's really 2 here primarily. The clerk and the treasurer. The clerk keeps meeting minutes, files notices and records. Treasurer oversees fiscal accounts, obviously with our finance department, and supports budgets and audits. Appointed officers. We have an excellent administrative staff, myself, and we have engineers. We have multiple engineers, primarily HR Green serves most of our engineers. But we do have other people. The administrator serves a very important role. So as I said many times before, the mayor is the chief executive officer, but the mayor can't do this all the time. They have an administrator, an assistant administrator to provide for the day-to-day operations and the chain of command through how items are done and duties are discharged, and we ensure that we enforce the operations of law and discharge our duties that we have to do as any other corporation. And that is an essential role. Is kind of a hybrid between again, this is an administrator to the government, but is a hybrid between a manager and chief of staff, and ensures all of the departments are in alignment. It ensures that those policy issues are being executed. It ensures that the laws are being executed. It is an essential role.
Is there any difference in the towns that have a chief of staff or some other, is it all the same?
Is an excellent question. So there are Article 5 forms of government. Those are managerial forms. So in that form of government, many of the duties that are normally performed by the mayor are actually performed by the manager, and the mayor becomes a more ceremonial role, and it honestly serves in a more legislative function. There's a commission form of government. Commission form of government is one where each department, each commissioner, in lieu of a trustee or an alderman, serves as the department head. Now, that's kind of arcane. They don't do that as much anymore. Small rural towns. So it's very different. Not many of those, for example, Zion one day. But to your question, chief of staff and administrator are generally the same. Manager can be the same, but if it's a statutory form of managerial government, they run everything. They make the hiring decisions, they make the firing decisions.
I'm not looking for it.
No.
Isn't the chief of staff doesn't have that? Chief of staff doesn't have personnel powers.
The chief of staff does not, manager does. Yeah. Now, there are also, if you forget about Chicago, so let's say to Chicago's a mess, take it out of the whole equation, completely different, it's like a heap. But there are some managerial forms where they go by manager or chief of staff, because the person wants to be called the chief of staff. I have an administrator who really wanted a title. They serve as an administrator, same form of government as this, but he wanted to be called a manager, so we called him a manager, but he really serves as an administrator. So to your question, generally, no, unless you adopt by referendum a different form of government, or we're a charter municipality. None of those are around here.
First of all, we have a cabinet, so,
Yeah.
it's a combination, but, it was explained to me years ago, that we had a strong administrator with the mayor duties, compared to other places that had either a mayor that did everything and ran the whole thing on a day-to-day basis.
They get paid a hell of a lot more.
This is not directed to you, but there are some people who explain to you that the earth is flat. That's not a thing. Like, you have, I don't know who explained that to you, but that's just, and this isn't a slight on you, that's just not right. Like, if you look, it's real simple. If you look at our village code, you see who does what. The administrator is imbued with much power. But those powers are by the appointment of the mayor, and it's his job to make sure, his or her job to make sure that the department heads are in alignment and that the board's policy decisions and the mayor's executive decisions are enforced properly. That's an important role, but the chief executive officer is the mayor. There's no, people come up with this all the time, and I don't want to get too much of a soapbox. Like I said, this is the worst presentation you'll see tonight. But people come up with these permutations, like a strong manager form of government. It's not a thing, it's good. Those are the stats. So you were misled, so, but I
wasn't misled, it didn't like.
Okay.
It didn't pass, it didn't pass the smell test, but I know who no longer is administrator, believe that.
Sure. Oh, well, yeah, I mean, and I can't control for prior people who were here before. Yeah. Okay, board meeting procedures. So we follow the agenda as posted. We act by votes. Motions require second support. There is one, if you want to pull something off in a consent agenda, you just ask to do it. You don't need a second for that. And then the minutes reflect the legal record. We encourage public engagement. We hear concerns. We set rules. We maintain order and decorum. So you can't ask people to leave really, and they break the quorum if they hold up the meeting progress.
Give the same presentation in Dalton when you're there, Mayor.
I have given this presentation. I don't think it was followed as much as. And that may or may not have been the place where I heard two trustees give the same or in opposite orders.
Before you go to money and ethics and conflict.
Yes.
Once the vote occurs, though, discussion is supposed, by Robert's rule,
It is.
It's supposed to end with no speeches afterwards.
It is, honestly, and I'll tell you, there are certain rules of Robert's rules that are always broken. And one of the biggest one that's always broken is people are like, and I would probably do it too if I was a trustee, but I am voting no because of blah, blah, blah. No, it's yes or no. It's yes, no, or abstain. And it's really what it is. People do it all the time. I would say, I'll go back to my Catholic upbringing. It is a venal and not a mortal sin. If that makes any sense. But people do it all the time. And they always say, like, I'm voting no because of this during the vote. If you're gonna do that, you do it during public comment properly. Will that get you sanctioned by a body because you're doing it? I've never seen anything like that too. I honestly, sir, from, let's say, from Dalton to Antioch, all across there, I've never seen a board that hasn't happened. Probably every other board meeting. It just happened. Sorry. Money, ethics, and conflict. I mean, very simple. So financial oversight, ethical obligations, and conflicts of interest. So the board votes on spending, as we talked about. Treasurer or finance director manages cash flow. The president proposes an annual budget through the designees. And the audits ensure legal compliance and our actuaries through pension issues. Don't take gifts from vendors. Avoid appearance of impropriety. Don't do, if you're going to do political work, you can't do it on duty. That is unconstitutional and illegal. And every year you're going to file a statement of economic interest. The statement of economic interest changed. Someone had the bright idea to say that you would stop all Illinois corruption by having someone sign a form. But this is the law now. We have to do it. If you don't do it, you can be removed from office.
Obviously, you should take anything from vendors. Is there some? It's like $50 or something.
$25.
Is that the number?
Now, if you have a personal relationship with somebody, you can.
If somebody gives you a Christmas gift.
If somebody gives you a gift and you have a personal relationship, that's fine. The issue comes in, I am not talking from personal experience, but when someone, gives them $1,000 for their half birthday, that is probably illegal.
Sure.
And you would probably end up in federal court for that. So yeah, I mean, again,
So you still accept the bottles?
the bottles of wine, that's fine. If it's a Louis XIV brandy, do me a favor, give me a call.
All right.
Yeah. Conflicts of interest. So declare conflicts always. We are very good about that. This board is very good about that. You've set up rules, and I have credit people in the past for setting up those rules. You're very distinct about that. You abstain from related votes, and multiple offices. If you take a direct benefit, you will go to jail. And indirect ties require caution. It's a small community, so everybody knows each other. I live this all what it is. So you just be careful and trust your gut, get a question, give me a call. Sorry if I'm talking too fast. Eliminate FOIA records and emails. Honestly, operate your government like it's an open book. I always say assume that people are gonna come in here and review every record that we sign off on, review every minute to determine if something is proper or not. You can't talk around the law. So board discussions that should be public aren't optional, they are required. There's multiple Open Meetings Act, public access counselor opinions that you can't get queued with that. You can't have discussions outside the normal form. So public notices are always required. The quorum sets a legal standard. No actions in secret. Any closed session requires a vote. Remember, we go into closed session. We always give the reason as to why we are going to closed session. FOIA, so transparency means public access. Emails and texts are discoverable. We have to meet deadlines, and there are a few exceptions, and they're basically based on personal privacy issues or things that, like Open Meetings Act, where we go into closed session, that would compromise the integrity or safety of the village. Local Records Act, so we have there's a Record Retention Act, we follow the schedule of records. You can't destroy things without approval. And that kind of goes to digital records too, which I always thought was kind of an issue in the world of social media. Like if you destroy or delete a post, question, is it technically a destroying of a local record that you created? And so that's, again, the law never catches up with facts. I'll make a very brief analogy. You're always gonna have somebody doing steroids that they're not the way the world works. The law is always behind. Email with caution, void reply alls, don't circumvent public access, beat that to death. One-way broadcasts are much safer and your emails may be FOIA, so email with caution. Helpful hints. So this is a little bit more lighthearted. This is a very boring presentation. So there are three branches, just like in local and big government. We have a legislative body, we have an executive. The executive designates much of its power or much of its administrative operations to the administrator, and the assistant administrator and other department heads or officers. Don't be that guy. Like, honestly, if you think something's wrong, just call me. The city of Chicago is famous for corruption. Let's just not do that. That is from Paw Patrol. So there is a recent Illinois Parks Association, how to be a good board member and how to be a bad board member. So I'm going to read some, and luckily many of these we do not have to worry about. They arrive late to board meetings and leave early. They don't try to understand perspectives of people who serve on the board. They want the agency to pay them for hiring friends. They divulge information from an executive board session. That's a real issue. Like if people talk, and this is not, I'm not directing, nothing I'm saying here has happened here to the best of my knowledge. But I've had people be like, well, we'll offer this for a piece of property. And then the next day I get a phone call and be like, well, what about this? And I'm like, well, clearly that leaked out. So I'm not, you know, I do make light of the fact that sometimes I've represented places that show up on the news a lot, but you do learn a lot from those places, if that makes sense. So AI is great. Everybody loves AI. We're going to leave. It's going to be the rest of our lives, but you can't rewrite everything through AI. Like it just doesn't work that way. And for the lawyers in the room, there's lawyers every day who are getting sanctioned by judges because they make up cases in AI. It's a real problem. It's helpful, and we have to learn to use it. It's like fire; it will burn you if you don't use it correctly. And so I always say, stop, collaborate, and listen. And so just try to hear everybody's opinion. That would be my one ask for everybody. And then I will put this in there. It's really a fun job. Like I will say this, I've never ran for public office, and I really respect all of you for the amount of time and care and concern. And I will say this, that there's not a person, we may not always agree as a board, or the board and the electeds and the appointed, but y'all really do think that your community is really important, and it really means a lot to me to work for you guys, because I really do think you have the best interest of your village in mind, and I don't work every village that I've worked for in the past. So I really do. That's a heartfelt thing. Like you guys really do care about it, and it means a lot. Anyway, so thank you. thank you all very much. We, try to do this, try to make it kind of fun and that's it. So if you have any questions, thanks. Like I said,
Sorry, we're 5 months later.
What's a you?
what is a youth? So yeah, you'll ask any lawyer too, what's the best movie about lawyers or what's most accurate is My Cousin Vinny about putting out women.
Next time you give that, wear that.
I'll wear that. I'll wear it for you guys, but I did mean what I said, and please ask any questions. You guys do, you don't always agree, and sometimes you get emotional about it, but you do all care about your community, and that means a lot. So thank you for allowing me to give this presentation and be. All right, good. I don't have any actuary tables, so I will.
All right, thank you. That's better than the IML presentation. And a lot shorter. All right, department reports. We have Assistant Village Administrator Moran. And then we have Director Gotlowski and we have Director Hybro.
Thank you, Mayor, Board, I'll be quick, just wanted to give an update. Just wanted to give an update on, moving into Village Hall. The Mayor and Administrator Kachow, had mentioned earlier today about all the hard work that everybody has put into making the move. And I just wanted to echo that, Lori, who's not here tonight, Rachel, and also Amy Peixoto, our IT manager, in addition to their day-to-day jobs that they do every day, did a considerable amount of work getting us ready and implementing the strategy to move. So thank you all for that. And as part of my report tonight, I just wanted to give you guys some IT updates on what we've been working on. With the help of Lori and also Ross, our GIS manager, all end user IT equipment was moved over to the Skidmore Village Hall last Wednesday. And by Thursday afternoon, Commander Garcia from the police department, along with 2 staff members from the Kind IT, who help us out as our contract IT services, and along with Amy, completed workstation setup by 1:30 in the afternoon. So that allowed village staff to get back to work. And even though Village Hall was closed all day Thursday and Friday, we were still finding emails and operational and up and running thanks to the hard work of Amy and everybody else. Amy is working with the AV installer to address some of the outstanding issues. Once we get those worked through, that's when we'll be able to move our meetings over to the new Village Hall. Staff training right now is set for next Thursday, September 4th. If all goes smoothly, we're anticipating holding the September 24th Village Board meeting at the new Village Hall. If obviously if things are able to be expedited, they will. We wanted to set a reasonable expectation. All access controls and cameras have been installed and fully functional. As far as our business development function and economic development function of the village, Kim Biederman has been working with a lot of the downtown businesses, the Shop Antioch organization, helping them promote their Shop and Play event, which starts tomorrow and runs through the weekend. It's a chance for shoppers to come downtown and win prizes. For every $20 you spend, you get a raffle ticket. They're giving away gift certificates and a bunch of other prizes. So every time the downtown businesses, there's like 20 of them that team together to do this. They always report a lot of success with that. So it's a good way to drive a lot of businesses downtown. Kim also did a lot of work. The Mayor's Golf Outing was last Friday with the Chamber, the Mayor's Cup Golf Outing. And Kim did a lot of work helping Barbara as far as getting golfers and sponsoring.
That's an understatement.
So what's it?
That's an understatement.
Yeah, Kim did a tremendous amount of work. So we're grateful for that. Also, as you're aware, we have a vacancy in our community development department. So myself, along with Administrator Kachow, we've been working to kind of fill the void. And along with that, I just wanted to give a shout out to Sonda Del Palazzo, who's our permit coordinator. Sonda has extensive experience in a lot of other communities and community development departments, and she has stepped up to kind of help us as we navigate through what our next steps are. And she's been doing so with the most important thing is customer service, making sure that permits or any other resident questions or concerns don't get caught up and have a delayed response. So she's been first and foremost with customer service oriented responses to all of that. So that's been exciting to be a part of that. And finally, tonight, you guys approved the communications contract with my Curious Communications that we've been working with them for the past several months. And every week that we work with them, we hold weekly meetings on Wednesday to talk through the rest of the week and then the following week, what's on our agenda, which, social media and that sort of thing. We've been working on workflows to make the process a little bit easier. So every week, I think we're a little bit more efficient. Parks Department, Village Hall, and Police and Public Works, we're physically spread all over town, so it's nice to have our communication team that kind of gets the lay of the land now and help us with more efficient communication. Their social media has been really good. And as you may have noticed, our website has been updated. This has been a project that has gone on way too long. Too many people have been involved, and it's been really a headache for a lot of people, but it's done. Or at least we now have the update on the website. And I gotta say, it looks a lot nicer than I thought it would. I'm proud to have been a part of this, but I did a very minimal part of the work. It was vicarious having them and their IT guy on board to really help push us to the finish line with that. So in conclusion, if there's no other questions, we can work report.
Thank you.
Thank you.
No, yeah, Director Kozlowski, Parks.
Okay. Summer day camp ended on August 15th. Originally, it was scheduled to end on August 8th, but we added a bonus week, which was very well received by our community. We had about 50 kids a day, which isn't too bad considering I got a ton of emails saying, if we had known about this sooner, we're going on vacation, or we couldn't really use this, we make other arrangements. So that will absolutely be part of our summer day camp planning for next year to get families closer to the start of the school year. District 34 always starts on a Wednesday, so at least getting the kids up to Friday before school starts is a really big help. Certainly wasn't my own family. We served 300 individual campers this year, which is very good. Last year we served 416, but this year we didn't have kiddie camp. So that 3 to 5 year old camp, so that was a big difference. Our program guide is almost finished. Kristen, Grace, and I have been working on that. We're designing it in-house in an effort to save a few $1,000s. And we'll get it printed and mailed out to everyone in 6003. 0003. Two. Oh my God, I live here. I know. Sorry. So that will be good. We have a lot of new things coming up in our program guide. We have 7 new special events, which I'm very excited about. A punt pass kick tournament, a parents night out program, a 3-on-3 basketball tournament. What I'm really excited about, Antioch investigates the paranormal. So it's going to be like a paranormal investigation at the Parks building. It's going to be cool. Breakfast with Santa, things like that. So we are doing some new stuff, shaking it up a little bit, and I think a positive way. And all the old standards will certainly be there as well. We've got a lot of new youth programming for school's day off. So looking back, it looked like we had only ever done winter break camp and spring break camp. We are now offering a fall break camp, which is during the week of Thanksgiving, because I don't know about you guys, but I got to work that week. And then all the individual days off school as well. So, President's Day or Columbus Day or, Institute days. So we'll follow the District 34 calendar. And my goal is to make our Parks and Recreation Department, our resident families, their third place. They're going to work or school, they're going home, and then I want them to be able to count on us to be there when they need us. Of course, there's going to be some days we're not offering things when we're closed or, big holidays and things like that. But for the most part, I think that our families would appreciate a local, reasonably priced offering for our youth. And I'm very excited about it. Tomorrow is the last concert of the summer series. We've got the Jolly Ringwalds coming back because they were rained out earlier this summer. The Small Town Smokeout is on September 13th, and the Fall Wine Walk is September 27th. Registration is open, by the way, for all of our programs, and we've been pushing it online and things like that. But once those books get in their hands, it'll be a lot better for registration numbers. That's all I have. Does anyone have any questions? Thank you.
All right, Dennis.
First off, thank you for allowing the Public Works building to progress that project and hopefully getting shovels in the ground. It will be a short one. Unfortunately, I didn't realize that I was starting to gather this report and looking at work orders. It must have been the month, end of June and August for a lot of Public Works staff to go on vacation. So, we did get some work done though. We did some storm sewer repairs on several structures, mainly from collapse and washouts. We did experience, which you may have been aware of, a very bad water main break. Actually, probably one of the first ones I've seen in my time here over on Anita, where it actually was above the power lines, spraying out of the
Can't
canal.
look. They thought it was like Old Faithful.
My
My
son
son saw it. They were like, it was like the
Mom.
greatest thing they saw. So
Help.
Yeah, I've never seen it produce water that high. The water department also made 2 hydrant repairs and 2 water valve repairs in the past month. We'll be looking to make our asphalt patch repairs, which I regretted to put off for the summer, but we just haven't been able to get on top of those. So you'll see those being patched up, especially along Anita, where there's several of them. The concrete lifting contractor is scheduled to start in the next couple weeks, which will continue up until probably November. I have a couple subdivisions, Woods of Antioch, he'll be in. I have a couple, over at PD, a couple squares that he'll be at. And then we're gonna focus into the arbors up Windmill Creek, and we'll see where we're at with the amount that he's got covered in the budgeted amount that I had figured. Road program, it's out to bid. We're actually opening bids tomorrow. So we'll have a good idea as to what bid package come in compared to what was budgeted, and hopefully we can get the roads done that I scheduled. And then Ross Kaminsky, part of our IUPA stormwater permit, he'll be out and about doing the fall inspections on the storm sewer. We look for dry, they call it dry inspection. So we can determine if there's any illicit discharges from any manufacturing or industrial storm sewers that are collected, so we can identify if there's anything going into the creek. So with that, I'll finish my report.
Do you have any update on the roundabout on Depot and Deer?
I do, they're scheduling to put it out to bid for this fall. I can circle back on that and get there.
Because I know the electric or the power lines have all been changed out, or some of them, not on the cable or phone or something.
No, it was mainly power line overhead. They were having some property acquisition issues, and that's what delayed it. But I'll follow up at my next report with information on that.
Then the 173 that's wrapping up. I mean, I'm on there every day. It seems like it's almost done.
Yeah, there's a portion near Osmond in 173 that's scheduled to be milled. But the majority of the 173 going to the east is all completed with, I think striping will probably occur in the next.
Yeah, they were out there yesterday, or this morning, putting on
The rumble
strips in the middle.
What are you saying is gonna be on Osmond? Is the border potty coming back to the street? It was in front of my house for 4 months.
I know, we contact
it's still better than that blue house.
Random people would pull up and use it.
With the storm sewer improvements and the curbing that they did between basically Hillside and Hardin, they're gonna resurface that area. You can tell, if you look, it's low about an inch.
Yeah.
So they're gonna come through, mill that, and then resurface that.
Okay.
Thank you. All right, that's it for reports. We have any requests for executive session? Do you need to go in for litigation?
We could go in on litigation. We talk about 2 things. I would ask for a motion, Mr. Chair, to go into a very brief executive session with no action to discuss pending litigation.
I will move. Motion trustee Plutarch,
Second,
second trustee Peterson. We have roll call, please.
Nathan,
Litigation.
No, cause I gotta go.
Luther,
Yes.
Neil.
Yes.
Martinez,
Yes.
here,
Yes.
Peterson,
yes.
5 voting yes, meeting's adjourned. We're going to executive session with no further action to take place after executive session. Meeting's adjourned at 8:49.